It's Monday, which means another mock draft Monday. And I know I post a lot of mock drafts, but I really enjoy doing them because I'm such a big college football guy. Of course, I'm watching tape mostly in the offseason, but sometimes on certain players as the year goes on. And it's just a really fun exercise to think about where these players could end up going. And this mock draft, I actually think is my best one so far, which means you guys are going to hate it. I feel really good about the way this one turned out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm still sticking with Travis Hunter at number 1. I just think it's tough to go a different direction when I'm not doing trades and mock drafts yet. The Jags, I think, would look to get out of this pick. It could be a team moving up for a quarterback, but as I've said before a lot, this quarterback class is just not very good. And the entire draft class as a whole is kind of lacking a lot of top-end talent. Giants on the clock at number 2. They continue to lose, which is good for their position to take a quarterback, and I think they're going to. Cutting Daniel Jones, obviously, I mean, the writing was on the wall there, right? But I just wish it was a better quarterback class. Like, last year was the year. And you never know how these guys are going to develop. It depends on which situation they go into, how they're coached up, how they develop. But a class that featured Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels was already a tremendous top 3. Now Bo Nix is playing well. Who knows what Michael Penix could end up turning into. But I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders. I just do think he's going to be the first quarterback off the board. I think he's the best. I think Cam Ward has higher potential. He's got more improvisational ability. He's a better athlete overall. And he's a much better arm in terms of top tier velocity. Cam Ward is closer to that than Shedeur Sanders is. It's just Sanders is a lot more accurate. They both hold on to the football way too long, but these are things that you hope can get coached out of them. Raiders at number 3, we're going to go back-to-back with the QBs. It's just the most valuable position in football. Even though I don't believe Sanders or Ward or Milroe or Nussmeier, any of these QBs, Carson Beck, I don't believe they're top 5 talents in the draft. I think you will see quarterbacks go in the top 5. It's a game-changing position. If you can get a good one, it can be game-changing for your franchise. The Raiders very obviously need a quarterback, and I think in the top 3, you might take a chance on one. Cam Ward is kind of who I keep giving the Raiders. At number 4, I think Tetairoa McMillan is a really good fit for New England, and I'll tell you this. You guys know I love Drake May if you've been on the channel. With all my draft covers last year, I came out, final big board. Drake May was my number 1 player in the draft. He was my number 1 quarterback, obviously, and I think he's played really well so far, going to what is the worst situation for any of the first-round rookie quarterbacks. I think he's looked awesome. They're lacking talent on the O-line, and they're still lacking playmakers at receiver. I like Jalen Polk coming out of the draft. He's looked really bad so far. And I think it is kind of a cautionary tale for someone with his skill set. Like, if you're just wide open because of the play rather than you, the player, individually doing something great to get open, and then your great other trait is just you can go up and get the football, you have very good ball skills, you still really need someone that can get open by themselves. And Jalen Polk has not really shown any ability to do that. And it's not something that was super apparent on his tape. He wasn't this unbelievable route runner. He has not been a good player so far, but there's still time for Jalen Polk. He's also not a dynamic athlete, so I don't know what his future is. I probably prefer Kayshon Boutte there, and of course you have some other good receivers. Pop Douglas I like, but you need a true wide receiver 1, and that's what Tetairoa McMillan can do. He's an X-style receiver, play on the outside, big-time ball winner, can go up and get it down the field as well. Very good player. Panthers at number 5. I'm going Abdul Carter. It's been a common match for me so far, but I think the Panthers need help off the edge, and they're kind of in a position where they need to go best player available at a position that's not locked up. Bryce Young is starting to play great. People, including the organization, seem to give up on him way too early. Would he be effective with every single team in the league? I don't know, right? But he's starting to come on for Carolina, and that would be huge if they can totally avoid and ignore quarterback and focus on getting more talent around him, either on offense or just in general. And I think that awful defense needs upgrading. But could this be something to help out the offense? Maybe so. I just think that The offense has potential with Chuba Hubbard, with a healthy Jonathan Brooks, with a healthy Jatavion Sanders. A lot of Longhorns. Aaron Sanders hopefully is okay after an injury. Their O-line's not terrible. Their receivers, they have Xavier Legette now. They have some guys that are capable of making plays. Maybe it's not something you take at number 5, and instead you take a more valuable position, it seems to be, and that's an edge rusher in Abdul Carter. Amazing athlete. Tennessee Titans at number 6. I'm going Kelvin Banks from Texas. I think he's got the best chance to stay at tackle of the top offensive linemen. Campbell's got a chance, but I think he's more of a guard even than Peter Skoronski was, or at least how I felt about him coming out. Campbell, really, really, really good player, but I think he's got more of a chance to move inside the guard than Kelvin Banks does, and I think the Titans really would be looking more for a tackle. Banks could also move into guard. A lot of these tackles with maybe limited mobility or shorter arms who are better, inside than in space are just guys that are probably going to be better guards in the NFL than tackles. But Banks, movement maybe is his big limiting factor, but I think he's got a pretty good chance. He's extremely strong, and I think would be a really nice fit with J.C. Latham, and you get 2 good tackles in the future now. Jets at 7, going Will Johnson. I continue to make this pick, and I think it continues to be a good one. Seems like Aaron Rodgers is gone now. So if you were the guy in my comments being like 0% chance Aaron Rodgers plays in the Jets next year, and I'm like, I don't know if it's 0. Well, it seems like it's trending towards 0, so there you go. But Will Johnson is one of the better players in the entire draft. Of course, the Jets have some free agents coming up in their secondary, especially at outside corner. I like their slot. I like their CB1. Even though he hasn't played that great this year, but Sauce Gardner, we expect to be a great player in the future. You could also look in the back end and think about safety. Malachi Starks is here, but I just think Will Johnson's one of the best players in the draft. Injuries have been, getting to him here in 2024, but he's a fantastic player, and I think worthy of a top 10 pick. As we get to the Browns at number 8, Jameis is playing fine. Are you going to take a chance on a QB here, or do you opt to go a different direction? I'm going to go Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State, maybe the Heisman winner. That's been a huge debate on Twitter lately. Ashton Jeanty versus Travis Hunter versus even maybe Cam Ward in that 3rd spot. Dylan Gabriel, I think, has fallen off a little bit. But Nick Chubb is in the final year of his deal. This Browns offense has been so dominant at times in the past with Nick Chubb. He was one of the best running backs in the league. Injuries have really hurt him the past couple of seasons, no pun intended, but of course missed almost all of last year, and now is coming back finally, but isn't quite the same player at this point. And he's not going to be under contract next year, so I think Jeanty just makes a ton of sense. He's one of the best players in the draft, and I think will end up going in the top 10. Last mock draft, I had him falling just to be like, what if he did? That was the experiment that we tried in that mock draft, and I just think he's going to end up going top 10, and I think the Browns make sense as a landing spot. Saints at number 9, going Mason Graham. They need to improve in the trenches, really. I don't know that guard is that big of a need. I think they're improving on the O-line, especially if Trevor Penning can end up playing to his pre-draft potential. But I think Nick Saldiveri is a future starting guard if he can, improve. He's such a young player. Cesar Ruiz is under contract. I don't know that guard is actually that big of a need. You still have Eric McCoy at center. So I don't really think interior offensive line is where you need to focus on in the top 10, although Will Campbell could be a decent option if you're not sold on Saldiveri. But again, he's so young, you don't necessarily have to take a guard or even, a tackle that could move inside the guard at number 9. Mason Graham's a great player, game wrecker on the interior. Really like what he brings to the table. As we get to the Bengals at number 10, going Mykel Williams. I think I've done this fit recently as well. I just think he or Scorton is like the best fit here in terms of edge rushers. Shamar Stewart even has a lot of potential, and some people like Stewart above Nick Scorton. And I think some people might be me. Stewart is bigger, if you can believe it, when Scorton is 6'4", 285. Shamar Stewart is 6'6", 290, but moves like he's 250, as I've been saying. I mean, he's such an insane athlete, and I know Scorton's production's been great, and I like him as a player. I just think Shamar Stewart might even be better. But I'm going to go Mykel Williams. Just like Stewart, another big guy, not quite as big, not even close, really, 6'6", or 6'5", 265. But Has versatility across the defensive line. I keep kind of comparing him to Trayvon Walker. I think it's easy to make that comparison with the Georgia defensive lineman of a similar size, really, really athletic, really long arms, kind of that modern-day, highly valued defensive end. Mykel Williams fits the profile really well and is the pick there for me at 10. I just don't know if Trey Hendrickson's going to be back in Cincinnati. I think you could use an upgrade on the edge anyway. Is Myles Murphy a long-term answer? I don't know. But if Trey Hendrickson's gone, you need to replace him. That's what Mykel Williams is as we get to 11. Although Luther Burden could be a decent option there if T. Higgins is gone. At 11, Dallas Cowboys probably hoping Ashton Jeanty would be available. He doesn't get to this pick, and they go with the Missouri receiver, Luther Burden, maybe even the best receiver in this class. I think he's probably best suited for the slot, but he's really good there. He's really fast. He's really good after the catch. I think bad quarterback play has kind of hurt how we felt about him as a prospect, but he's still quite good. Bears at 12. This is Will Campbell. What a happy surprise that Campbell's available at 12. He could maybe stick a tackle for you, or he could go inside the guard and upgrade there. One of the best, if not the best, offensive linemen in this draft, and the Bears really need to upgrade their O-line. This is just a match made in heaven. And some people think that to make it easier for myself, or to give my team who I want, I do a mock draft in a certain way. It has no bearing on real life. I don't know why I would do that. It doesn't factor in. I'm not going to just have, the Giants taking whoever I personally want them to get when another player makes a lot more sense, or having a player drop just so my team can get them. That makes no sense. And I take every team on the clock like they're on the clock. I don't draft ahead, right? I try to think, okay, who would they actually go with here? Who makes the most sense? And even so, maybe it's not the position that makes the most sense, but sometimes it's best player available. Sometimes it's factoring in contracts that are expiring. There are a lot of different variables, but Will Campbell here, it's like, who does he go to? Right? If he's going to potentially move inside the guard, your options maybe get a little bit limited. If the Patriots don't go with him at number 4, the Panthers I don't think would. Maybe the Titans, but again, they maybe need more of a tackle than a guard. The Jets I don't think would. I don't think the Browns would, although they need a tackle. But if you think Will Campbell's a guard, like a lot of scouts seem to, who takes him? Saints? And then you pretty much get to the Bears. So Will Campbell is the pick there at number 12 for me. And then Malachi Starks flies off the board at 13. He's a top 10, maybe even a top 5 player in the draft. He's a tremendous prospect. Modern day safety. He's got very good size, speed, and instincts. I don't know if teams are going to let Kyle Hamilton drop and then make the same mistake potentially with Malachi Starks, who goes here at 13. Could even go earlier. I don't know. At number 14, have the Miami Dolphins. Going to look to upgrade the offensive line with Texas lineman Cameron Williams. Played right tackle at Texas. He's got very good size and movement skills, something that Kelvin Banks doesn't. Although Banks is more technically sound at this point, Williams is a bit more raw and inexperienced. You're going with someone that you hope to develop here. And if you can, same way that, Teron Armstead was developed as a raw prospect who was a really good athlete with great movement skills. I know not with the Dolphins. He ended up on the Dolphins. But Cameron Williams has big-time potential. If you can develop him, you're going to end up with one of the best tackles in the league just because of how athletic of a player he is and how dominant some of his tape has been, despite the inexperience. He's going to make mistakes. He has at Texas, but he's growing as a player every single week. Bucks at 15. I keep making this fit, but it keeps feeling like a fantastic selection. It's Jalen Walker. Fits the defense really well. He can stand up and play as an off-ball linebacker on occasion, but he's also a menace off the edge, and I feel like this is the Shaq Barrett replacement you've been looking for. Rams at 16. This is maybe the weirdest pick of the mock just because it's very different from what I would usually do. I'm going Jalen Milroe. Listen, relax. Jalen Milroe has potential, right? And the way I thought about this, I like Matthew Stafford. He's still quite good, right? But how long is he going to be able to go? And I think Milroe sitting at least for a year with the development under Sean McVay, I think this could just be a really, really good fit. I think McVay is a mastermind on offense. I think he would be able to tailor the offense to Jalen Milroe utilize his incredible speed, and try to get his own type of Lamar Jackson. Now, Jackson was a more accurate passer than Milroe was coming out, but Milroe is a very explosive athlete with a good deep ball. I think there's something there, and I think similarly to the way that the Packers had drafted Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was there, and then Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was there, and maybe even the Falcons. When Kirk Cousins was there, you drafted Michael Penix. Teams are looking for that replacement quarterback down the line, a guy you can develop and then have a younger, cheaper option. Milroe can be that and is a really intriguing option here for LA, and I just love the fit with Sean McVay. He's got some development to do, but Milroe's on the board at 16. Maybe take a chance. At number 17, the San Francisco 49ers got Nick Scorton going off the board here. I think you do need to improve the edge rush. Nick Bosa is a great player when he's healthy. He's amazing, but you need something on the other side. I think the 49ers have been lacking that. Scorton is the pick there at 17. Cardinals at 18. He continues to be ranked way too low on the PFF big board here. I'm going with Derek Harmon out of Oregon. He is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the draft. He has been a force to be reckoned with at Oregon so far this year. If you have not watched Oregon, if you have not watched Derek Harmon individually, you need to watch him. I know the numbers aren't crazy, but numbers for draft prospects really don't matter. It's about impact, and when you watch the games, his impact is extremely noticeable, even if the sack numbers aren't incredibly high. He is a disruptive force on the inside, and that feels like a good fit for Arizona. Falcons at 19, just awful pass rush. Got to improve it. James Pierce Jr. is a really good way to do that. Explosive edge rusher. The Falcons cannot keep ignoring their pass rush. They can't. I mean, it's part of the reason why their defense is not nearly as good as it could be. Seahawks at 20. Going with Josh Simmons from Ohio State. He is injured, has been injured this season. I think he's going to be good to go for next season, and his tape was pretty phenomenal so far. He was really a guy rising up boards in a big way. In 2024, could end up being a first-round pick. Commanders at 21. I think this is a great fit as well, upgrading their secondary with another injured player, Savone Revel from Eastern Carolina. And I think he's got the size and speed that Dan Quinn would absolutely covet. I think this is a fantastic fit for a team that needs to upgrade corner in the worst way. You can't keep throwing Benjamin St. Juste out there. Revel, Dan Quinn type size of corner. That's what he covets, and he's an insane athlete. I would hate this as a Giants fan, but it's a really, really good fit in my opinion. Texans at 22. Got to upgrade your O-line. It's been a disaster. You've seen C.J. Stroud struggle as a result. And I think Jonah Savaiinaia from Arizona will probably play guard in the NFL, but could stick at tackle, has played tackle at Arizona, and is probably a first-round talent. Well, in this draft, I think he's going to be a first-round pick. I think the Texans is just a great, great landing spot. Broncos at 23. I still like the Colston Loveland fit a lot. Greg Dulcich actually cut today, or yesterday. Really, really disappointing. Just injuries really held him back and never really find his footing in Denver. Loveland is an amazing receiving option there at tight end, and it can be a power slot, as I've mentioned a lot. Big slot type player. He's just not really an inline guy. You'd think he could be at 245, maybe 250 pounds. He just is not that impactful as a blocker. He's just a really awesome receiver at his size. Ravens at 24, going Benjamin Morrison. He might end up falling out of the first round due to some injury stuff. His season is over, but apparently it could be a little bit more serious, and we're wondering if he's even a first-round pick at this point. The tape has just been so good, at least in 2023. I worry about the injury. Maybe it's more serious than we initially thought. That could push him out of the first round, but from what I've seen, he's looked really, really good. So I am going to have him still in the first round at this point until we get more information to kind of go a different direction, or maybe other guys rise up the board. Chargers at 25. I think Tyler Warren is an incredible fit here. He's arguably the best he's the best true tight end in the draft. Loveland maybe he's a little bit better as a receiver, but Warren I think is more of a true tight end. Certainly amazing size at 6'6", 260. Can block, not to the level of like a true amazing blocking tight end, but can do it enough and is a great receiver, and I think a really good fit with the Chargers. Herbert's producing with Will Dissly. Imagine if Tyler Warren was in the mix. I think it's an awesome fit. Steelers at 26. Going Shamar Stewart here. I hyped him up a little bit earlier, but cliff notes on him is that he's got incredible size and movement abilities. He is getting better and better and better. He's someone with a super high ceiling as a prospect, meaning great potential. Cam Hayward's not going to be able to play forever, and I think you could just use an upgrade on the defensive line in general. You have had some guys that have played great, right? But Shamar Stewart, I think, is just too good a value to pass up, and I think he's eventually your Cam Hayward replacement. If you have him as a rotational player year one and then a full-time starter year two and beyond, I think you're pretty ecstatic with that. Packers at 27. I've really wrestled with this for a while. I think their team needs are accurate here. O-line maybe just in general opposed to just tackle. Corner, and it's maybe those are maybe bigger needs than interior defensive line. But I look at the interior defensive linemen available. Tyleik Williams is really good. Kenneth Grant is a solid player. Walter Nolan has amazing potential, and I think that fits the mold of what Brian Gutekunst wants in the first round. He wants the high potential athletes or offensive linemen. We don't go O-line, we go Walter Nolan. He's a former top 2 recruit who has shown flashes of dominance so far at Mississippi, at Ole Miss. He's got big-time potential. I think he's a player worth taking a chance on here at the back end of the first round. Vikings at 28, going running back. I've been going with Caleb Johnson a lot here recently, but this time around I'm going to go Omarion Hampton. I love both of those backs. You know, they're skilled in different ways. Hampton is a lot. I mean, he's 6'1", 220. He is a real problem to bring down, and he's been a bell cow, workhorse style of running back. He's an awesome player, and the Vikings, I think, could use an upgrade at running back long term. I like what Aaron Jones has provided this year, but long term, I think Hampton or Caleb Johnson, maybe even a Quinshawn Judkins. This running back class is just so good. I think you are going to see 2 or 3 go in the first round, but the value might be day 2, where I do think you see Quinshawn Judkins go off the board and Travion Henderson and Dylan Sampson has been amazing for Tennessee this year. He's got some of the most touchdowns in SEC history. DJ Giddens. Ollie Gordon's really fallen off. RJ Harvey's a great back. I mean, this class is so good at running back. There's so much value, but I do think some will still end up going in the first round. Omarion Hampton could be one of those guys. Next up, Eagles at 29. I just think that LT Overton makes a lot of sense. We know the Eagles like to build through the trenches. They need to upgrade their pass rush. Overton feels like the type of player that Howie Roseman would really like, with some versatility on the defensive line. He's 6'5", 283, can play 3-tech. Kind of think, you know, similarly to a Milton Williams coming out. I think he's got that type of scheme versatility, but I think he could also be productive on the edge, and you could just go with, you know, a big defensive line, but a really athletic defensive line as well with the addition of LT Overton. Bills at 30, going with a linebacker. They've got some great covers linebackers, don't get me wrong, some great covers linebackers. I think they need more of a thumper, and that's what Jahad Campbell can potentially offer. He's also decent in coverage too, make no mistake, but at 6'3", 245, with his type of athleticism and speed, this is a guy who can impact the game as a pass rusher on the inside, as someone who can defend against the run really well, sideline to sideline, and spot drop. I think he's a really, really solid option at 30. He will be the first linebacker off the board if I had to put money on it. I don't hate Danny Stutzman. I just think Campbell's a much better player. Chiefs at 31. Still trying to upgrade the O-line. It's Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. Tackle is just a need for the Chiefs all the time, it would seem. And with, you know, the top tight ends off the board, with, you know, such a need to protect Patrick Mahomes long term, I think it's not tough to, you know, put in the card for Ariante Ursary here. Maybe you'd consider like Josh Connerly as well. Gray Zabel's getting a lot of hype right now, and then Wylet Milam will be my last pick here to the Lions on the basis of him probably moving inside to guard. It's not a tackle. We love Penei Sewell. Taylor Decker's there. This is probably a guard for the future. We don't know about the future of the center position either, but there's not a center worth taking here at 32, I wouldn't say. But Milam, as good offensive line depth and an eventual starter at guard, I think is a pretty good fit there for Detroit. That is the Monday mock draft here, keeping it just over 25 minutes for you guys. Hopefully able to digest it here after Monday Night Football. And I will see you in the next one, and next week, hopefully you watch my other videos too, but a lot of video game stuff on the channel lately. So if you're just here for the mocks and for football, I want to get more football talk on the channel. I'll find some topics to talk about and hopefully have something entertaining on the screen during that. But I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.